So nice to have folks who've done it before too, because they always have some good tips. All right, everybody see my screen?
Okay, I'll stay. I might have a tip.
I convinced you, huh?
Hmm.
All right.
I'm an easy sell.
There we go.
See one, do one, teach one.
Yep. All right, so our mission: repairing homes, revitalizing communities, rebuilding lives. So that's what we're all about, and Rebuilding Days is one of the ways that we do that. So we appreciate all of you helping us fulfill our mission. Victoria already went through the key dates, but those are also found in your handbook on page 4. So if you're wanting to reference them, that's where you can find them. And as she mentioned, today we need your 3 choices. If you haven't already given those to her, you did complete your waiver when you, wait a minute, did they sign up through Salesforce, Victoria, or do we still need a waiver from them?
We still need a waiver. I haven't sent that out yet.
Okay, so so yeah, you have a waiver in your handbook. It's appendix something. That part is covered up. The appendices are in the very back. I think you may have sent those as a separate document. But so you can either fill out the appendix and the waiver and send it into Victoria, or when she sends out the link to sign up as a volunteer, you can sign up for your project, and in doing so, you agree to the waiver. But we do need to have that back from you. And then the other piece that we'll need back from you is Appendix A, which basically is your agreement that you're committing to completing anything that gets started on Rebuilding Day. So if you started painting the house and your group doesn't finish, then you'll make sure you bring some folks back and finish that off, that you won't leave the homeowner with an unfinished project. And I think it says within 30 days. So Appendix B is something else that I like to draw your attention to, and that really talks about the scope of work. And as Victoria mentioned, our construction manager, Kevin, goes out and does an assessment, and he uses these 25 healthy housing priorities to do a comprehensive assessment of the home. And so when you saw the profiles that she sent out, most of the work that was identified for Rebuilding Day was painting, because that's the typical sort of volunteer-friendly task that we have identified on these projects. But there's often a number of other things that were identified as being needed. We typically use our contractors or our in-house technicians to address a lot of those tasks. But as Victoria mentioned, if you see something listed there that your group might be interested in taking on, let Victoria know, and we can work with you to see if that's something we can add to your scope. It's possible that it may have already been done, but much of the work that's listed there is still needing to be done. So this gives you sort of a list of things that we typically do. And so it just gives you an idea of sort of the breadth of our work. And each item coincides with one of the 25 healthy housing priorities. And if you want to do something that's not on the profile at all, it's something completely different, we will need to approve that. One of the reasons that we can't just start adding tasks just because they would be nice to have is that we have to submit a list of repairs to each of the cities that we work in on our projects, and they have to approve those tasks. And we've already gone through that process. And so if we're going to add any tasks, then we have to resubmit that. And so we just want to make sure that it is something that we can do, that the cities will allow us to do, and then we can make that happen. But we just need to go through that process. So talk a little bit about lead. If you're familiar at all with lead that was in paint prior to 1978, we are bound by the, they call the RRP rule, which is repair, renovate, paint rule. I forget exactly what the RRP stands for now, but basically the EPA put out this this rule about 10 or 12 years ago, where if you're working on a home that's older than, if it's 78 or prior to 78, and you're going to be disturbing any paint, you either have to have it tested for lead or you have to assume that there's lead in the paint. And so for all of our homes that are pre-78, we do have them tested. And the reason 78 is sort of the key date is that in 1978, they reduced the amount of lead that they were putting in paint. And they had started to reduce the amount of lead prior to that. But in 78, they reduced it significantly where there was just a trace of lead. There's still lead in paint, especially any kind of glossy paint, because that's what helps make it glossy. But it's very, very minor now. So generally our mobile homes don't test positive. So that's good because we do a lot of work on mobile homes, but we do have them all tested. And if they come back positive, then what we do is we have to go through, we have to follow lead safe guidelines as established by the EPA, and we will hire a painter to come in and take care of any areas that tested positive that have flaky paint, and they'll scrape using lead safe guidelines and then prime those areas. And so then you're ready to paint when it's your day. If it comes back negative, then of course you get to do all the prep work if there's any to be done. And so this chart just kind of shows you, what you might encounter based on the age of the home that you're matched with and how the lead results come out. If your house was built in 1978 or later and you're painting, or your house is in a senior park and you're painting, or your house had a lead test and it came back negative, then you will get a scraping kit. If it came back positive, and even if we had it worked on by a painter and all of the areas that had loose and flaky painting were taken care of, we still won't be sending you a scraping kit because basically there's still lead there. It's just we don't want to disturb it. And so we don't want you doing any more scraping than what we've already done. So that's sort of the rationale between whether or not you'll get a scraping kit. Any questions about lead?
Yeah, so the hazard of lead is if it's there and you paint over it, it's fine. It's just like asbestos, right? It's scraping and aerosolizing it. That's the danger, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's the dust that can get you. So when we go in and do the lead prep using lead safe work practices, we have to scrape wet, we have to keep it contained and dispose of it properly, and then
they're wearing respirators, I assume. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I mentioned, a lot of our projects are mobile homes. About 60 to 70% of the work we do is in mobile homes. That's where we see a lot of our older adults living, and that's where a large portion of the need is. And so if you are matched with a mobile home, you will get to know that little mobile home park very well. And we strongly suggest, it's really required, that you get to know the mobile home park manager as well. So in your handbook, Appendix K, there is a letter to the mobile home park manager that you can print out and use to introduce yourself and go in and let them know that you're going to be working on a home in the park. And you really need their cooperation because You're going to be bringing in, a group of volunteers that day, and you're going to want to work out with them about parking and the use of restrooms. A lot of times they won't let us bring in a portable toilet, but they will allow us to use the clubhouse restrooms. Sometimes they'll even let us use the clubhouse if you want to go in there and have lunch. If you're going to need to bring in a dumpster for any reason, you'll want to work with them on the location of the dumpster. And then most of the parks have regulations around what color paints they will allow. And our paint colors are, for the most part, pretty amenable to the park managers. That's one of the reasons why we have the colors we do. But you'll want to work with them once your homeowner has selected a color to make sure that that color is allowed. Or you could do it the opposite way. You could take the colors into the manager and make sure there's nothing on there that's not allowed. But we do have a set number of colors, and the homeowner can select one of those colors. There's your letter. All right. So each project will be given a budget, and for the most part, I think your budget will probably be $1,000. And that's because, and you probably won't even need that if all you're doing is painting, because we do provide you with all of your paint supplies and the paint. The $1,000 really is just for any other additional repairs that you might add to your list. And if you do end up adding anything significant and you need a larger budget, that's something you can work out with Victoria. We do provide you with a Lowe's and Home Depot credit card that you can use to, and then like I said, you have that $1,000 limit. And if you need to purchase anything anywhere else, there's a process for submitting a reimbursement. So. Safety is our.
This whole budget thing, that was about the most confusing thing as I read through the material so far. It was like some things were you included in your budget, some things weren't, and just.
It's not as confusing now that the scopes have gotten much simpler. There was a time when we would have groups that would do quite a large list of repairs, and we would provide some of the materials and they would purchase a lot of the materials. And so we were trying to get the discounts where we could and help the money go further. And so it made it a little confusing as to how much money you had to count toward your budget from the things that we provided. But they're not as complex these days. And so it should make it a little easier.
Okay, like for example, one of the proposals looked at like the screen door needed to be replaced, and if it's not already done by your group already, or the Safe at Home program, and we do it, does that become part of the budget, or is that?
Mm-hmm. So it would be part of your budget, and you could use your credit cards that you get from us to purchase it, or if you needed to pick it up from the screen shop or something, and you can either purchase it using your own funds and then we'll reimburse you, or you can bring or send us an invoice and we can write a check. We can figure out a way to get it paid. But yeah, that would come out of your budget.
Okay.
So just a reminder that safety really is our top priority. And of course, there's a lot of safety issues beyond COVID. We do consider the home a construction site on rebuilding day. And so we want to make sure people are reminded about being safe, if they're not sure how to do something, to make sure they ask for help. And there's a lot of information in the handbook about ladder safety. That's something that you might want to include in your kickoff is, how to use ladders safely. If you've got extension cords, power tools, anything like that, you want to make sure that you go over safety on all of that. We generally don't allow volunteers over the age of 18 or under the age of 18 to use power tools. Again, there's a lot of safety guidelines there in the handbook that you might want to pick and choose which ones are relevant and review those in your kickoff.
Here's a good question. What's the minimum age for volunteer participants?
They have to be 14 to participate and 18 to use a power tool.
Okay, I was thinking 16, but okay, 14. Got it.
And then, of course, quality is a close second to safety. So we want to make sure that we leave the home in better shape than we found it. And as I mentioned, we want to make sure we're completing the work that we start. And if there's additional cleanup or anything like that that we can do, we can certainly add that to our scope. There is, you'll always want to make sure that you do a good job cleaning up when you're all finished. That's one of the reasons why we tell house captains that we really don't want you getting too involved in actually doing the work, but we'd rather you be supervising and making sure that you don't have any messes you have to clean up later. And I have this little picture that I love to show of these little guys getting into the paint, and you'd be amazed how quickly that can happen on a work site. So if you've got your head under the sink trying to help with a plumbing project, once you come out, you never know what you might find. So yeah, so try not to let that happen.
Is that from an actual rebuilding project, or is that just?
No, thank goodness. Just another reminder. All right, so we're going to get into the steps here, and we'll kind of move at a quick pace. Don't hesitate to stop me if you have any questions. So this is your house captain checklist. It is in your handbook. It's got kind of key steps along the way that we're going to go through, and you can plug in dates from the calendar. Again, it was on page 4. So your project match will get to you hopefully no later than next Tuesday, August 31st. Included with that will be a link to the SurveyMonkey that you'll need to complete after you've visited your site and done an assessment. And we'll look at that here in just a little bit. Also, you will get the homeowner contact information as well as your budget. And Victoria and I talked today, and like I said, most groups are just going to start with $1,000 budget, because I think everybody has exterior painting, and then if you need to add anything significant, we can adjust as necessary. I think we've also mentioned that the profiles have a list of additional tasks, and again, if there's anything you identify when you do your site visit that hasn't been done that your group wants to take on, then you can have that discussion with Victoria. So you'll want to visit your project, and in your handbook there are some tips for how that all goes. But basically your first visit is to gather information, to really see what you're dealing with, maybe identify if there are any other tasks you want to add to the painting. And you want to make sure that if you are looking at any other tasks, that you don't make any promises, that really that first step our first visit is to gather information. We've learned over the years that our homeowners our homeowners claim we say things that we know we never said. So they insinuate a lot from, like, oh, that's something we could do, to mean that we're going to do it. So literally just tell them, today I'm making no promises. We'll be confirming with you what work we'll do after we've gone back and evaluated the information we collect today. So, and the other piece is just to have the homeowner meet you and begin to learn what this is all going to be about, and become at ease with how this is going to work. So then after you've done your visit, and I would encourage you to do your visit with your at least your volunteer coordinator, maybe even your COVID captain if you have those identified. so that they have firsthand knowledge as well, and that will help them with their jobs moving forward. So together you can then review what you encountered and start to develop your scope of work. And again, it may just simply consist of painting the outside of the house, which is just fine. And that in and of itself is a worthy task and will definitely take a day. So don't feel like you have to add anything to that unless that's, you know, something your group is really interested in doing. So one of the things that we kind of one of our mantras is to undercommit and over deliver. So we would rather you know, have a few straightforward, easily accomplished tasks and get those done. And then maybe, you know, you realize that here's a few things that we might be able to do if, you know, if all goes well and we have extra people or extra time, and then you can, you know, you can add that to it, and it's a kind of a little bonus. It's better to do that and take that approach than to, you know, have a long laundry list of things you want to do and only get, you know, half of it done. So again, we want to leave things better than the way we found it. Then your next step will be to figure out how many people you're going to need to accomplish these things. And if you've managed projects similar to this, and you may not have, which is fine, you have to kind of take a different approach, because you're not going to be managing people who've done this type of work, you know, day in and day out. So they may have dabbled in it. Maybe they haven't done it at all. And maybe they're not used to doing manual labor 8 hours a day. And so you're not going to get the productivity out of a typical volunteer than you would from somebody who paints houses for a living. So think about that. We do, you know, we've had a lot of practice, especially this last year, in painting houses with 15 volunteers, because that was the maximum amount of people you could have. And it's very doable, especially for a mobile home. If we're allowed to have more than 15 and your group is comfortable with that, and you want to bring on more than 15 to paint or do other things, that's fine. But I would say that you would want to designate 15 people to paint a house. And then for any other projects that you might take on, you know, depending on what they entail, you'd want to have, you know, a couple of people per task. And then when you're recruiting, I would look at recruiting at least 10% more than what you need, because we do see that volunteers will drop out. I would say, especially with COVID, you know, people may feel like today they're ready to do it, but the end of October, they may change their mind. When we used to do signups, I should say before electronic signups, we saw more of a 20% dropout rate, but lately that has gone down to 10%. So people, when they sign up now, they're pretty committed. So unless there's something that goes on with their health, or, you know, again with COVID, that could change their mind. So
speaking of the painting, couple of projects I did last time, it was clear, the captain stated that, yeah, they were there, the captain or someone was there, you know, day or two before rebuilding day, and, you know, power washed or did some sort of prep so that the day of it was efficient. Because, you know, especially a full-size house, if you're starting from scratch to scrape, clean, and then paint, that's almost a 2-day process.
yeah. And we have power washers that you can borrow. And a lot of captains, if they do want to do that ahead of time, will sign up for a day to come and get the power washer and go do that ahead of time. That's why I tell people you almost kind of wish that your house does test positive for lead, because then all of that is done for the most part for you before rebuilding day. But,
So is that a best practice then? Because I mean, having painted lots of times interior and exterior, it's 90% of a good paint job is the prep.
yeah, yeah. And I've seen groups try to paint a dirty house and, it's really a waste of effort. So,
Yeah, I mean, bare minimum, it seems that you got to hose it down because otherwise you're just painting over dust that doesn't
right,
stick.
right. And it won't, you can't do that the day of, that. So,
Exactly.
Have a
So is it a
chance.
best practice basically, like I have to plan to take a day off and go clean it the day before at least?
yeah, yeah, or the weekend.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I recommend a few days just to let it dry really good. And it doesn't take all day. It typically takes me 2 or 3 hours to
Okay,
do it.
yeah,
We've also done the same thing where we power washed beforehand, and a day before usually works. Also, what helps during that time is, especially in the mobile home parks, they tend to have stuff around the home, and so to help kind of move it off to the side, or the homeowner will be there, so he or she can help put stuff away and clear a path so you guys can, so you can not only power wash, but then when you come in the next day to paint, it's clear.
Yeah, because if
Okay.
you got people showing up to work and they've got nothing to do if you're going to be, power washing the house in the morning. I just couldn't imagine doing it that way, frankly.
No, it seems like I don't see a way around it. And it just
Mhm.
No.
seems like that's the expectation. I got to plan for that. And, with my work schedule, if I can't do it during the week, it may have to be, 6-7 days before the
The
previous
weekend
weekend.
before. Mhm.
But I think that's fine too.
Oh, yes. It
And
takes
just
a long
real-
time to get dirty.
Yeah, and real quick, you said you were providing all the supplies. Would you provide power washers if we were to do that?
We do have 2 or 3 power washers. So as long as everybody didn't need them on the same day, I think that's part of the survey that you'll fill out. You'll indicate like 2 or 3 days that you would want to use the power washer. And then Victoria will figure out, and assign people to a certain day.
David Stanley, for a regular home, is that something you do yourself, or do you need a small task force, 2-3 people to come help do that kind of stuff?
So yeah, assuming it's one story, we've just done it ourselves, 1 or 2 people. So in past, I've been the volunteer coordinator, and so I would go with the house captain, and the two, he would man the power washer, but I would just make sure that the hose was not getting tangled and move things out of the way. But it can totally be done with one person as well. Typically I'll start pre-scraping as well. If you have, when we go to pick up the power washer, we'll usually take a scraper as well, and then we'll just scrape off any loose and chipped off paint, just to prep the surface before we paint.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you visit the site, you'll see if there's like a lot of bushes right up next to the house or something where you need somebody to help kind of like put a strap around them and pull them aside, or I would definitely recommend doing it with at least one other person. And it
Okay,
could be
yeah.
something that you ask somebody, you don't do it, you ask somebody else to do it. You've got some folks in your group who could do it.
And Deanne mentioned bushes, and one tip that has worked for us in the past is if you do have a bush that you need to pull back, just throw a big trash bag over it, and then get some kind of strap or twine to just wrap around the garbage bag, and then pull it away from the home.
Just lean it away from the home.
Yep, that way you can get in there and people can get in there and paint.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in the spring, the house, I was there on the day 2 of the thing, and the day 1, it was a massive landscaping effort, and then literally they spent all day chipping and chipping, and it was a really, really bad condition. So they needed 2 days. It was in Cupertino. The whole crew on day 1, I guess, did all the chipping and painting, and then day 2 that I got there, it was just painting.
And that's something that some groups do decide they'll do, and I know David could speak to this, where they decide they're gonna have like a small crew go the week before and do some prep work. You know, some of the houses may have a lot of things that need to get moved, or you know, have a lot of scraping that needs to be done or something. And so some groups have organized a pre-work day to do that, which is kind of up to you. So, okay, so we'll keep moving. Again, this was probably part of the handbook, Terry, where it got a little confusing, where it talks about what kind of kits that you get, and if you're going to ask for any other materials from us, what you would need to count toward your budget. But I think the main thing here is that we do provide house kits. We have exterior and interior kits for painting, and then a house kit that everyone gets that has, you know, cleaning supplies, gloves, safety goggles, garbage bags, that kind of thing. So sort of your, you know, sort of your, just anything you might need, scissors, paint can opener, dustpan and brush. So everybody gets that automatically. And then depending on what you're painting, you'll get a paint, you know, an appropriate paint kit.
Yeah, it looks like paint and all these kits are not part of your budget, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Not part of your budget, nor is the paint.
Okay.
You do get 2 smoke detectors and a carbon monoxide detector in your house kit. I would venture to guess, though, that you probably don't need them, because that's something that one of the first things we do in all of the homes that we work on. But it is something worth checking to make sure that they've got working smoke detectors and a working carbon monoxide detector. And in your handbook, one of the there's an appendices on each one about how many and where they're supposed to go and all of that. So, okay. All right. So, so once you've done your visit and you've kind of figured out your scope and how many people you're going to need and what supplies you're going to need, you're going to want to go to your SurveyMonkey link that is here, but again, it'll be in that email that Victoria will send out with your project match. And so you're going to get this link, and this is what it'll look like. And you're just going to complete I'm just going to try to get this in real quick so we can move to the next question. You'll put your homeowner information in there, and then you'll fill in who your house captain is, who your volunteer coordinator is, and who your COVID captain is. And anywhere you see an asterisk, it's going to require you to complete that before it'll let you move forward. So just know on this page, the only thing we're requiring you to give us an answer to is who your house captain is, which is kind of ironic since you're the one filling it out. But and then, but of course, we would like this information again, even if you've given it to us. So go ahead and complete that. And here's where you give us your scope of work. So again, painting the exterior may be the only thing you do, or maybe you've decided to replace the screen door. And maybe you're going to repair a doorway threshold. I mean, you know, there could be a number of little tasks or even big ones that you might decide you want to try to take on. And this is what you would fill out here. And there's a section down here on low priority tasks. And this might be where you would put some things like maybe replace house numbers, or replace front porch light. Things that you could kind of decide to do at the last minute, they're pretty minor. And you would only do them if, you know, things were going really, really quickly and you kind of wanted to sort of put a cherry on top, or, you know, something that would be easy for a couple folks to take on. And you kind of have them in the back of your mind and be ready to pull the trigger if the situation presented itself. But it's not anything that we're going to commit to ahead of time.
That's the kind of stuff I think you don't have, right? We go to Lowe's or Home Depot and grab it.
Right.
Okay.
And then this question, are there any tasks on the original profile that you will not be addressing? And again, that is only the tasks that are at the top. And so in most cases, the only task up there is exterior painting. And so this question is probably not going to be relevant. But the reason that it's here is that if there, Victoria, are there any profiles that have anything other than exterior painting at the top? Okay, so I would just say no. Used to, when we had more things up there, some folks would decide not to do everything, and we would need to know, you know, which items are you choosing not to address. But that's not an issue. And here, if you answered yes, there are things you're not addressing, you would need to complete this. But again, it's not relevant. This is, again, Terry, the confusing section about if you're going to be doing some things that other than painting, where we could provide you with materials. Here's kind of the list of things that we have on hand that we could provide for you. I don't think this is going to apply in most cases, but you know, we do build a lot of steps. And so if for some reason, you know, your group was going to build steps, you could, or wanted to install steps, you could request the steps here, grab bars, railing, any of that kind of thing here, if you wanted to add that.
Yeah, I see like a ramp is in one of the profiles that I saw.
Yeah, and most likely that's already been done. I mean, that's something that we typically try to do. The safety stuff is what we try to do, you know, right out of the chute. So
Okay.
It's not been done. There's something causing us not to be able to do it yet. This is your place to create kind of a shopping list. And this is mostly for your benefit to think through, do I have enough money in my budget? So, you know, if you're going to decide to replace that screen door, getting a ballpark figure on what that's going to cost. And I can't imagine it's more than $1,000, but you know, if you had a variety of things that you were going to be purchasing, it would, this would be kind of your worksheet for figuring out. And a lot of people will actually go to Home Depot and price everything out. You can do that if that makes you feel better, but we just generally want you to kind of mentally go through that, and maybe you could check online and just kind of get a ballpark of what things are going to cost, so you have a general idea of where you're going to land on your budget. And this is where you would add up the different pages where you've come up with expenses to figure out if you're within your budget. So that takes care of materials, and the next thing would be volunteers. So here's where you would indicate the number of people you think you're going to need for your project. And again, given that most of the work we're doing is volunteer friendly type work, you probably are not going to need to request skilled workers. But again, if you are, this is where you would do that. So I would say that if you're wanting to do something that would require us to provide the skilled workers, then it's probably not something we want to add to your task list. It's something that we can do on a different day.
And Deanne will update the question number 29, the 15 max. We're allowing for more. So
Yeah, we can change that. Mhm. Yeah. Okay, so will you be painting the exterior? So we'll say yes. And so here is where you can let us know the color if you know it, if your homeowner, this is where it gets a little tricky, especially with COVID, because pre-COVID, we would have the homeowners come to our office and we would show them pictures of houses painted with all of the different colors that we have available. We'd have paint samples that they could look at, and they would let us know what color they wanted. They don't come in anymore. We send them the information they need. And then I think we send them a picture or something of the different colors, and they let us know what color. So you don't have to get their color choices when you do your visit, unless you feel like, unless they're just, sometimes their house is painted gray with white trim and they want to keep it that way. And so it's just really easy. But that's not generally the case. You could review colors with them if you wanted and see how particular they are. If they're not ready to make a choice without having more information, that's perfectly fine. Just say, I'm unsure, have the homeowner select, and we'll work it through with them. But these are the colors we have. We have Plymouth Gray and Sands of Time, and then we have 5 trim colors: white, blue, brown, burgundy, and green. Primer, let us know if you think you might need primer. That is, if you're going to be doing some scraping or you've got bare spots or anything like that. Say, yep, I'm going to need 5 gallons of primer. And if you need us to help estimate how much, we can do that. Very rarely do people prime the whole house anymore before they paint, because generally either it's already been done if we had to go in and prep it, or it's just not in bad enough shape that the whole thing needs to be primed.
It's usually just bare wood that you want to prime.
Yeah, right. But for a mobile home, we generally provide you with 12 gallons of body paint and 4 gallons of trim paint. And for a traditional home, we would give you, is it 24 gallons? And we do give them to you in single gallons, so that they're easier to pick up and manage. And we don't waste as much. When we used to use 5 gallons, we ended up wasting a lot of paint. If you do open paint and don't use it all, I would say leave that with the homeowner. We really can't take open cans of paint back. Here in the warehouse, we really only want the unopened cans. That's primarily because we've opened cans of paint that have been opened, 6 months later, and actually it was like full of water, or, it dried up because it wasn't closed well enough, or we can't guarantee that it's the
Dirt
same
got in it.
paint that, says it is. So it's a nice thing to do anyway, to leave them with some paint so they have it for touch up or anything down the line. Here's your power washing screen. So if your house was built after 78 or came back negative from the lead test, the other thing that allows you to be able to scrape or power wash is, and this is kind of sad, but if it's in a senior park, so the lead safe rules do not apply to mobile home parks for seniors. The rule does not apply. So I think the main reason is because the rule really was established to prevent lead poisoning in children. And so if the park has been established as basically an all adult community, it doesn't apply. Oh, am I gonna power wash? Yep. And then here's where you can put your dates in. And then ladders. So we do have 4, 6, and 10-foot ladders. And if you can kind of try to think through how many you might need, here's where you can request those ladders. But also think about when you come to pick them up, how you're going to transport them. So we have some groups that will ask their volunteers to bring ladders, which is also fine. And if you don't want to have to deal with transporting them, you might be able to do that, or find somebody that has a truck or something who could pick up the ladders from us. Debris bins. Here's your options. Yes, I will need a entire debris bin for my project. I won't fill an entire bin, but I'm willing to share and have one placed at my site. Or I can bring my debris somewhere else. So we usually try to place bins around the city, and then we'll let you know where the closest bin is. If you happen to have a house that, for whatever reason, has a lot of debris that might need to be disposed of, then you may want to have one at your site, which is fine. But because this is something that we do try to help with, helping people get rid of stuff that they may not have had a way to dispose of.
I thought there were 2 sizes. I thought there was a 40 and a 20.
There is, it's the price difference is from the place that we get it from, Premier Recycle, is pretty minimal. And so what we've tried to do is get all 40 yards and then share them. But we have had to do the 20 yards if like there's a place that might need a bin and there's not a lot of room. So we might need to go with a smaller bin, but. Oh. And then the last page is the porta potty page. I always tell people when you get to the porta potty page, you know you're done. So this would be where you would request a portable toilet or not. And again, where this is really critical is if you're working on a mobile home, getting this approved by the manager before you request it. Like I said, some of the parks are very particular. They do not allow portable toilets in their park. And I've had to move several the day before rebuilding day because they got delivered by accident, and the manager called and was just furious, and the portable toilet company was already closed. And I had to go out there and load it up on a truck and move it. So they are pretty easy to move if you get there and it's in an odd spot. A lot of times they'll put it, right by where you're going to be doing all your work, or where you're going to have your coffee and lunch, and you'd kind of like to move it away from where everybody's gathering. It's on these little skids. It's easy to push. So definitely don't feel like you can't move it if it's not in a great spot.
Push slow, don't tip.
Yeah. So once you hit profile complete, you cannot go back. So make sure you can review, you can go back and change your answers, but once you hit complete, then it's done. So if you need to make any changes, like if something comes up and you've now decided you didn't think you were going to be able to have a portable toilet, but now you can, just let Victoria know. All right. So that is due by September 20th. So you'll get your match on the 31st, and you'll basically have about 3 weeks to get out there and visit the project and submit that scope. So then what will happen is Victoria will take that survey that you submit and create a scope of work that will look similar to this. And she'll share that with the homeowner. She'll send you a copy so that this is kind of your, your, I always forget the word, when you have when you're doing a project and you check everything off when it's complete. So here's your checkoff sheet. But it's also really important because we have the homeowner review it prior and agree that every attempt will be made to accomplish the tasks outlined here, but they also realize that due to unforeseen circumstances, not all items may be accomplished, but anything started will be finished. So that's the commitment we make to them. And again, I mentioned that Appendix A talks about how when you do take this on, you're committing to completing anything that you do start. Again, we'll send that to the homeowner. You'll send you a copy once we get that all formatted. Once we've gotten your survey, we'll also have your credit cards available for you to pick up. And you can come by and get those. And at some point, Victoria will also let you know to make an appointment to pick up your supplies. So we do supply pickup the Thursday and Friday before rebuilding day. So you can choose a time on one of those days. And you can pick up so you'll be picking up your paint kits, your house kit, and your ladders and your paint. But your volunteer coordinator will also have like t-shirts and lunch supplies and waivers and all of that. And so sometimes the house captain and volunteer coordinator will come together. Sometimes one will come and pick up both. So you'll just need to coordinate that with your other leaders. The credit cards that you receive, there'll be instructions on how to use them, but basically anyone can use them. You'll have a PO number that you'll need to use that'll tie your purchases to your project. And so when they go in to make a purchase, they will need to have that PO number as well as a photo ID. And so that way on rebuilding day, if you want to send somebody to Home Depot, if there's something you didn't pre-purchase that you discover you need, you can send a runner. So we highly recommend that you not leave the site and send a runner so that you don't hold up progress by being unavailable. Here's some suggestions on how other house captains have organized their teams. And we kind of leave that up to you, however you work best, whatever you think will work best for your group. Some groups like to pre-assign folks to different tasks. Sometimes they just wait till the day of and let people sign up when they arrive, whatever you feel would work best. We do have the COVID captain. There is also the possibility that you may want to have a separate safety captain. And like I mentioned, a runner, and all of that information again is in your handbook. So it's always nice to have people looking out for each other's safety, like ladder safety and making sure there's no tripping hazards around the site. Maybe somebody who's first aid trained. So again, that's up to you if you want to identify somebody to help you out with that. And this is just sort of a repeat of what we've talked about a little bit as far as making sure that you're not getting too involved in any specific tasks, but that you're really focusing on quality and safety and supervision. We encourage you to get there early and make sure everything is in place and ready for the volunteers as they arrive. We do also encourage you to have a kickoff meeting before you get too far into the day to talk about safety, get organized, maybe meet the homeowner, and get everybody, excited and jazzed for the day. We do try to stop by, either one of the staff members or one of our board members will try to stop by during the day. Usually they try to either get there for your kickoff or maybe during lunch, so that we're not disturbing you guys while you're working, because we don't want to, don't want to distract you and keep you from working. So we will likely let you know when we'll be stopping by. Yeah, and then just as I mentioned before, being aware that people may not be as productive in the afternoon, especially if they're not used to physical labor all day long. They may disappear early. We see that sometimes where people, have other commitments and they may leave early. So we don't encourage, starting too much new after lunch. And as soon as people start to kind of finish up their tasks, get them engaged in cleaning up, so you're not the one left there cleaning up on your own at the end of the day. We have a morning kickoff kind of agenda or talking points, excuse me, that you can choose kind of what applies and use that from the handbook if you'd like. And we've gone through some of the appendices, but certainly take a look at them. There's some helpful resources in there that you may or may not want to use or feel is applicable. So after you've completed your work that day and you finish the task that you've started, you want to get your homeowner to sign off. And I'll show you where that is on that scope of work again. You can bring your supplies back to us that day. Or you can bring it back anytime the following week. But at least by the end of that following week, we need your supplies back, your signed scope of work, your credit cards, and your receipts. So all of that can come back to us, and we try to get that back from you as quickly as possible, because we know we don't want it to drag on. We know you don't want it to drag on. So the quicker you can get everything wrapped up and turned in, the better. So again, here's the scope, and the little green circle shows you what needs to get signed at the end of the project. So you'll do a walkthrough with the homeowner. They'll sign and date that the work is now complete. You'll initial it. And then if you could have the homeowners answer these 2 questions, that helps us with the data we have to provide with the different funders that we have. And I think the only other thing that we do is we do send you another survey after the project is complete that asks you some questions about how many people were there, how much time you spent on the project, specifically what tasks were done, and if you had anything donated. Sometimes people will get things donated, and we want to make sure we recognize those donors. And that is it.
When I volunteered the last couple of times and I fill out the volunteer form, I get this big long questionnaire about what skills I have, what tools I have, what ladders I have, and I fill it out with all this great detail. And every time it's, don't bring anything, don't bring any of your own tools, everything's provided. So I'm like, it seems like, is that we not supposed to have people bring all of their own equipment and tools, or?
So when you fill that out, that helps you as house captain and your volunteer coordinator. You have access to that information on all of your volunteers. And so, for instance, if you were wanting to have volunteers bring ladders, you could look at the information from your volunteers to see if you've got volunteers with ladders. Or maybe, I think there's a question on there, do you have a pickup truck? So that, you know, if you don't have an adequate vehicle to pick up your supplies, you could, you know, you could reach out to that person who's indicated they have a pickup and see if they'd be willing to help you with supply pickup. And then the same for tools. So, you know, if you're looking for a power tool of some sort for a specific task, you can look to see if there's anybody who's indicated they have those tools, or if they have that skill to do that type of work. So yeah, I would say that it may not be clear. I mean, because when you put all that information in as a volunteer, it's like, so now what? So now, since you're on the other side as a project lead, you know, maybe the message would be, you know, here's what I'm looking for. Can you provide, you know, this, because you've indicated you may have this, or whatever it is. It's probably underutilized, but it's meant to, you know, provide resources for the project that as a house captain and volunteer coordinator, you do have access to that information.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally brought my tools, and a number of volunteers have also brought their tools. And if they end up getting used for the project, then great. If not, then we just leave them in our cars. So.
And we all know that when you get involved in projects, you always need things that, you know, that you didn't plan on. So it is helpful to have them.
I think if you're doing any skilled projects at all, thinking ahead about it in as much detail as you can is one of the most helpful things you can do. Because yeah, like Deanne's saying, you know, you think about like every little tool that might be needed for this, because it's not like working at home where you have all your tools there, you know, and you find out, oh shoot, we need blah blah blah, and we don't have it. So yeah, that's.
I know
Yeah.
on the projects that Dave does, there's a couple, thinking of Liz and Charles, and they usually just they've got a pickup truck and they just fill it up with anything that they think they might need: shovels, rakes, you know, pruning, shears.
Better to have than not, and not need than the
Yeah.
other way.
They're yeah. Charles is a godsend. So my suggestion is just get yourself a Charles and you'll be fine.
If we could just provide a Charles for every project, we'd have it made.
Yeah, my Charles is is Mark John Bluth, and
There you go.
yeah, so he brings an entire like workshop with him. So
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess my stuff was never tapped because it was mostly painting, and I guess they had the ladders and you provide all the paint, so I guess
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or?
I have an insatiable desire to go get a Bloody Mary right now.
I know. Thank you, Anna, for the inspiration. Yeah, I know that looks really good. All right. Well, yeah, if you've got your project matches, project choices into Victoria, then sit tight and you'll hear from her by early next week. So, and then the fun will begin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
I guess
everybody.
one last question is how do you, I mean, I guess I was on the other side of this, is how do you, I guess you fill in individual volunteers and augment where you, as you think you need, or how does that work?
You mean as far as like if you have, if you feel like you don't have enough volunteers and you need more?
Well, or like, again, the last 2 times I've just volunteered as an individual volunteer. I signed up and, you know, you guys told me, you know, I just said, put me in, coach, and you guys told me where to go.
Right,
right.
right.
So I assume you get, you know, non-associated volunteers, and how do you divvy those up? Or
So we have some groups, some sponsors that have provided funding, but no volunteers. And so that's where we put the majority of individuals or small groups that want to volunteer with us who aren't part of a sponsorship group. And then if we have an abundance of those folks, then we will reach out to our sponsoring groups and ask if they need additional people. And if they do, then we'll plug people in those spots, just like we did with you, Terry, because I think you were out with the Santa Clara Realtor group last year.
Yes, them and Cupertino Rotary last in the spring, and yeah. I assume the other case could happen where it's like, I think I need 25 people, and the last week it's like, oh, looks like I'm only gonna have 20 show up. Can you help me fill in with 5 more?
Yeah, we do our best with that. It's always a little bit, touch and go, because we don't really know how many of those folks are going to sign up. We don't know how many we're going to need, but it generally works out. It generally works out.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We sure appreciate your commitment and your leadership. So this is the only way we can do this work. So we're very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice meeting
Thanks, Deanne.
everyone.
Yep, likewise.
All right. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye.